Don't worry about it. Can you? Yeah, just go in at them. We got a 2.5 minute break.
Once you hear the music, I'll count you in.
Okay. And we are live on Facebook right now. They're on my phone. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
Can you still see me, or am I creeping off the frame?
Guy.
We're just gonna have to do it this way.
That one can spring back at you.
It did. It did the first time I was here. Can you see me now? Now I just look like I have a big green nose.
You can see your glasses and your chin.
My glasses and my chin.
All right, talking to both mics.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Main Street Matters, and this is Ron Mattis. I'm here with Mr. Main Street Nick Ingram, and we are talking about issues that are relevant to the people of Columbia. Nick, you know, one of the things that I like about this show is that we're able to address a lot of events that are going on, make people aware so that they can actually be involved downtown. What do we've got coming up that people might want to be involved with?
You know, the events that are happening downtown are really great opportunities for business owners to take advantage of. And that's kind of why we mention these events, because, you know, businesses are able to reach out to some of the people who are hosting these events and try to create some, either by sponsoring some of these events, so getting brand awareness out there, or being able to maybe sell product or food or whatever it is that they're trying to sell. So think about this as you're going out throughout your week. March the 22nd and 23rd, we're hosting an archery tournament right here in Columbia. So that's next week. We're having an archery tournament. It's going to be big. It's supposed to be a lot of people out there. Very large crowd. They do that every year. March 23rd, on Thursday, there's what's called Blessing of the Businesses. I just found out about this yesterday in the Columbian Progress. So make sure you read the paper every week on Thursday and Saturday's papers, because there's a lot of good things happening that we're unable to cover in this short segment that the Columbian Progress covers in a wealth and in detail. So we're thankful for them. But just make sure you check that out in the paper. There's a lot more details there. It's going to happen at New Life Fellowship, I believe at 6 o'clock. It's a great time for business owners to rub shoulders. There's going to be some business owners giving testimonials of how they grew their business and how thankful they are that God is in their business and how they use that for their business. So April the 14th and 15th, so that's next month, about a month away, the Dixieland Old Engine Show. They're going to be having old engines out here in Columbia at the water park, and some even come out of Nashville, Tennessee. Some of these old engines, and so there's a group of people that really love these old engines. That same weekend, April the 15th, you have the Columbia Car Quest car show. It's from 9 to 3, co-hosted by the Backwoods Cruiser. So that's going to be at Car Quest over there off of Lumberton. So don't forget about that. Great opportunity if you want to see some old cars. That they're kind of some of the ones that come to our cruise in will be there the first Saturday of every month. Don't forget about that either. And then that same day, April the 15th, Easter Parade that evening. We're going to try to get some of those tractors that are going to be out at the tractor show to drive down the Easter Parade. Having a lot of excitement about that. We're going to be hiding Easter eggs. We're going to have some prizes in some of the eggs, so you don't want to miss that either. And then that night, to top it all off, we're going to have the rodeo at 7:30. So really, really full weekend next month, halfway through the month of April. Now, one thing that I want to make sure to mention right now is tomorrow is our Facebook ads training. You don't want to miss this opportunity. I'm really excited about what's going on, how businesses can utilize Facebook to grow their business. Now, we're not just talking about posting on social media. We're talking about using Facebook ads to actually drive traffic to your Facebook page, to your store, for them to make a phone call, to sell product on Facebook. Quick story, we helped a company here in 1 week generate $62,000. We're up to $62,000 from 1 week of ad spend on Facebook. Well, incredible opportunity for people here to utilize this channel of Facebook advertising. So we're really excited about that.
I think that's great, because I don't think most people don't realize that Facebook can be used for so much more than just updating their status or taking a picture of what they're going to eat, or whatever it is they do. But why don't you tell everybody, if they want to be a part of this, how do they go about that? I mean, what do they need to do to come? Is there...
Well, the cool opportunity is the classes. It's not free. It's actually $200. But the unique thing is it's free if you're a Main Street or an MCDP member, which costs about $120. So to be a member of Main Street or MCDP is actually cheaper than having the class. So really excited about that. I believe that we have Jan Clark over at the Expo Center on the call. And we're going to be talking to her about the Expo Center. Jan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are y'all this morning?
We're doing great. How are you?
Well, a little chilly this morning.
Well, Jan, we're sitting here talking about events for this month, or for this month and next month. And we're talking about the rodeo. Is that happening at the Expo Center next month?
Oh, yeah. We've got that going on. We've got a lot of stuff going on up here. We've had a lot of good stuff in the past, too. We've got, not only we got the rodeo coming up, which is our big event, we've got a horse show up here, too. We have a Appaloosa horse show up here next month. That's going to be on the 8th. Then we'll have another horse show in May. We've got the South State Archery Tournament, which will be here next week. That's always really, really nice. But we've got all kinds of stuff that goes on up here at the Expo Center. We have cow shows, we have chicken shows, rabbit shows. We just have all kinds of stuff that goes on up here.
Jan, where can people find out of these events? Like, how do people see where these events are listed? Are they just through flyers? Because I just found out about the rodeo just this week that was going on down there.
Actually, I think you can go to the partnership page. I think it's on the partnership, and it might be on the city website. I'm not real sure, but a lot of times people just call and ask what events I've got going on. But that's pretty well on the partnership page, so.
Well, you might want to think about seeing if they'll let you attend our Facebook ads training tomorrow, because that may be a avenue or channel that you may want to get involved in, and so that you can promote some of these events through the Expo Center. Because, like you said, there's a lot of things happening, and one of the hurdles has always been just awareness, and I feel like that's one of the things that we're trying to do on this show, is just bring awareness to the community of what's going on, because there's so many things in this community going on, and some people feel like, well, there's not a whole lot going on, but there's something happening almost every single weekend, and sometimes several things every weekend.
That's it. That's exactly. I mean, I stay busy up here all the time, from one thing to another, and we back off on the north end of town, and some people, a lot of people say, well, when they come up here, we didn't even know this building existed. I mean, we have a fine building up here. We've got RV hookups. We have horse stalls. We've got fine community rooms that hold up to 250, 275 people with a full commercial kitchen. We're just nestled off in the woods up here, and a lot of people don't know we exist.
Well, that's wonderful. Jan, this is Ron. We're thankful that you came on this morning, and we encourage everybody to stay aware of all the great events that are going on at the Expo Center. Thank you so much for being on the show this morning. We are Main Street Matters, and we will be right back.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
I'm more conversational. I need to get like a.
So we got 2.5 minutes. We're going to bring Harry Griffith in, and we're going to get him set up. Does that sound good?
No, I think we can go to this next segment by talking about some of the things on community.
How long is this next segment?
Well, what are you going to do?
I was thinking we were going to talk about some of the things that, I think it'd be a great opportunity to promote some of the things that you're.
Okay, so this is
Can we do a short segment?
Yeah, let's do a short segment, and we'll be on in about a minute 15.
Do a 5 minute. We're going to do one more 5-minute section.
Presentation for Reverend Willie Cliff Watt. Meeting today, 2 to 7 p.m. at the Funeral Home Chapel, and again on Thursday from 9
Yeah.
At the Zion Ridge United
When are we
Methodist
going to
Church.
uptown at clock?
Service will be
7:30?
Thursday at 11.
No,
We're going to 8.
Zion Ridge United
Yeah,
Methodist Church.
we'll go to 8.
Yeah, we usually have the mayor candidates on about 7:30. So we'll have you on a little bit earlier, but we're going to go into one more segment.
Invitation for Lima Earl Daniels and Eva Ruth Daniels will be Thursday from 3 till 6 p.m. at Cook Galloway Chapel.
I'm gonna make it my mission this week. I am going to find some little mic stands for this.
Can you see Ron in there?
Yes, I'm in and out.
Any activity on our Facebook live here? Oh, well, thank you, Robbie.
That's it so far.
We're in the Hellenbach studio. Thank you to Hellenbach for making this possible, and for all your gun needs.
Is that us?
Go see.
Nope.
Not to refresh. Go see Kevin Buckley over at Hellenbach and get or Grant MacArthur. He sells Hellenbach ARs at Michael's RV. The Great MacArthur. Scroll down. All right, we're almost coming back.
Nice hat, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back to Main Street Matters. I'm Ron Mattis with Nick Ingram. You know, Nick, one of the things that you and I were talking about yesterday while we were getting ready for this show, and I think it fits with what we just talked about, is the fact that being a part of the Main Street organization actually offers a lot of great educational opportunities. One of the things that you're doing is you're producing some videos on success principles by Jack Canfield. And I think that's a really great tool. I was listening to some of the things you were doing, and just some people don't have time to read a book. Some people, you know, they're running from one thing to the next, and you know, they don't have anything that's challenging them or helping them to consider ways that they can improve how they interact in business or decisions they're making. And so this would be a great opportunity. I know I enjoy a lot of these things by Jack Canfield. So what can someone do to be involved in taking advantage of those things?
Well, what's really unique, Ron, is that you know, with technology today, you're able to reach a whole new audience or expand your audience. So the web, social media, Facebook, you're able to build an audience and to provide valuable content to that audience in a whole new way. Audiences can take advantage. Like, we're recording Facebook Live right now, but you know, most of our viewers on Facebook, they're not up this early, so we record it live. So there's a few that watch us live, but then most of them will watch later on in the day. So the power of video on the internet, that's what everybody's watching. You know, everybody's watching. That's the channel that everybody's watching. So we're taking these ideas, and you know, some of the inspiration from you told me about these ideas that the Jones companies are doing and how they're educating their employees. And so I kind of thought about that and put those two things together. And I've been reading this book, and it's my mission this year to master the Success Principles by Jack Canfield, because his philosophy is that you can double your revenue in a 12-month period by simply applying these principles. And that's true. It's happened in my own business. But by applying his principles, we've been able to double our revenue and in our business. And so we're very excited about that. We want to share that. So we've put together 90 days, so all 5 days of the week, 90 days of success principles. They're 4 to 5 minute videos. Some are even 3 minutes. And kind of summarizing and capturing the heart of each chapter that he talks about, each of the 64 principles that he talks about. Because one thing, you know, you can do Facebook ads, you can advertise in the newspaper, you can advertise on the radio, you can advertise on the television, right? All those things are great. You can study and you can learn a new trade, but the one thing out of all the training that I've done in the last 4 or 5 years is it really boils down to mindset. We talked about that a little bit last week, but that's what it really boils down to. It really boils down to the belief and the self-confidence that you have in yourself to take 100% responsibility for your actions, believe that you can accomplish something, setting those goals, making them real and tangible and measurable and very specific and finite, and then overcoming the fear of rejection, overcoming the fear of failure, overcoming these things in your mind that really, really make the difference. So you can do all the training in the world. You can learn how to be a farmer if you wanted to.
Right.
But unless you just get out there and do it.
Yeah, a lot of that ties into almost everything we cover on this show. I mean, if you think about it, it ties into the fact that, when we're looking at Mississippi as a whole, the fact that there's so many areas, major measures that we're 50th in. So many things that, around the country that people have gotten this idea in their mind, and yet there are people who've come to Mississippi because they believe, someone like Christian, who believes that Mississippi is the best kept secret for businesses. So, I think the discussion is, how do we make Mississippians believe that they can rise? How do we make Mississippians believe that there are opportunities, that there are things that they can do to better themselves and to create a better future for their kids? And I think if people start to believe that and apply some of those principles, I think you can see a lot of great opportunities for Mississippi. I mean, it's just a matter, like you said, of first of all having the confidence and the belief that things can get better and that your future can be better than what the past has been. So I'm excited about it. I think that there's a lot of things that people should take advantage of by just logging in or joining.
That's right. Thank you, Ron. When we come back, we're going to be visiting with mayoral candidate Harry Griffith, talking about the future of Columbia. Main Street Matters.
Hold on, I just thought of something. Do y'all have any electrical tape?
We do. Tape it.
Tape that microphone to that one. That way you're only focused on one microphone at a
That's
time.
awesome. See? Simple like me. Where's the electrical tape? Right there.
All righty.
Thank you for joining us for Main Street Matters. Today we have mayoral candidate Mr. Harry Griffith. How you doing today, Mr. Harry?
I'm up early, and I hope everybody's getting their day started. I think it's going to be a beautiful day.
All right. So first question for today: if you had, if you won mayor, what would be the first thing that you did on the first day of your mayor tenureship?
Well, that'd kind of make me nervous. I'm sure I would get up even earlier than am here today. I think that in examining the problems of what Columbia is facing, and that's the reason that I'm running, is that I think there are some really important problems that need to be addressed for the future and for now. And we have to have good management in City Hall. We have to have professional management. These cities are like businesses. They're not good old boy politics anymore. You've got a $6 million budget. You've got employees whose lives and families depend on having good management in City Hall. So I think the first thing I would do, as you know, Don McKenzie has been a wonderful city manager for over these years, and she's reaching retirement age. So we're looking at a change in the city manager's job, and I would. So that's these city managers are really who runs the traditional cities in America today. They run day-to-day operation. They know the money. They write the checks. And so first thing I would do is employ a new city manager. And to do that, I would find a four-year college person who had some public administration work, background in education, and of course accounting is everything. And to get a new city manager, I think that hopefully I would ask the Board of Aldermen to examine the salary. Don McKenzie has been underpaid for years, and you're not going to get a four-year professional city manager for the wages that the city's offering, which is around, from the last I remember, $35,000. The mayor of Columbia is the second highest paid mayor in the state of Mississippi. If you go to Google, you'll see that South Haven, below Memphis, which has got over 100,000 population, and Columbia are extraordinarily, their salaries, I think, are out of line. So what I would suggest to the Board of Aldermen is that they swap the salaries of the mayor with the salary of the city manager, who actually does the day-to-day work. The mayor is really is considered in the past a part-time job, and I think although some mayors have taken it on full-time, I'm seeing that they are doing other things, and so I think the mayor's job is overpaid for a city of 6,000 people.
Let me ask you this, and that's a great point, but if you're elected, what's, other than hiring a city manager, what are we going to do? I mean, what are we going to do to take Columbia forward? What are we going to do to make Columbia a place that's going to attract more businesses, that's going to create an environment where people want to invest again, people want to live here, restaurants want to start, Main Street's revitalized? I mean, I think that's some of the issues, I'm sure you'd agree with me, that people are caring about the most. Is, you know, how do we take Columbia forward? How do we make it a place that's revitalized again? And I think that's the biggest issue that people are looking at. How do we make Columbia more than just a bedroom community, so that on the way to Hattiesburg?
Well, there's nothing wrong with being on the way to Hattiesburg. These interstate corridor cities are like Raleigh, Winston-Salem, Jackson, Canton area, going into Pearl, where you've got Hattiesburg, Purvis, Petal, Columbia. 98 is the most important industry we have as far as people having jobs and availability of a wonderful city like Hattiesburg matched with a wonderful city of Columbia, and we have to use our assets. Now, 80% of getting well is identifying the problem. So you're talking about Columbia, what are we going to do in the future, and do we really have a problem now? The problem with government, state, federal, city, the problem with government is the electorate. The individual that goes down to vote or doesn't go down to vote. That's the problem. And you're part of the staffing of coming up with individuals that can handle the problems of the city. Now, do we have a problem in Columbia? Really? Do we have a problem? Well, we got a declining revenue. We talk about the Facebook, the internet, the Amazon sales, the online internet sales are devastating to the growth of local sales tax. And I mean, it's even hitting Walmart. If you go to Walmart, you're seeing lesser crowds, and it's going to be more and more in the future. So where are the future revenues going to come to? Well, you know, Columbia, if we talk about it, let's look at the assets that we've got. Columbia is the third oldest city in Mississippi. You've got Biloxi, Natchez, and Columbia, 1822. And my people came to Columbia in 1799 when Mississippi was first formed as a state, you know, as a territory. They came to Columbia as a territory. I'm sixth generation, and I know the history of Columbia. And one of the most important periods of history in Columbia was when Hugh White was a governor. And he came up with the idea of balancing industry with agriculture, where we were primarily a river town, delta town. Cotton was very important to this area. And Hugh White came up with a tax break for industries that would come to Columbia. And the first industry he found was the Columbia Parachute Factory, which was up in Connecticut. So that's wonderful, but what isn't wonderful is that on March the 13th, the Parachute Factory, which we've loved and has provided so many wonderful jobs for Columbia, filed bankruptcy. Did you know that? So Rudder Rex, New Orleans Furniture Factory, and men like Richard Price and Mr. Morris and Mr. Kemp, they were heroic in trying to keep these companies running, to give people here in this Delta town jobs. And because of the way the world's changing very fast, those jobs have gone away. Now, Hugh White balanced industry with agriculture, but now today forestry is a bigger industry than agriculture, and I think that what we've got to do is look for a new industry, and I think the one that has solved the problem of a lot of cities is tourism. We're an old, historic city, third oldest. We have a beautiful architecture. We have a beautiful downtown, and we have beautiful cemeteries and parks. It's a place that tourists riding along the road are bored. They want to see something different, and we've got it. We've got some really interesting things here in Columbia that I think, if advertised and promoted, we could bring a lot of people in to stay the night, to eat in the restaurants, to staff the places we want to staff. It would be a tremendous thing. But to do that, you've got to have City Hall. And City Hall is going to have to change. Their attitude's going to have to change. In the past, the mayors have just paid attention to the works of the city. They have not been they need to be on the board of downtown. They need to be on the board of the Marion County Development. And then let the city manager run the city. And they need to be out promoting the city.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right. You're thinking that promoting tourism is what's the next big thing for Columbia? I mean, is that the biggest? Do you think that's the highest and best use of the mayor? The role of mayor is to promote tourism.
Well, the role of mayor is going to have to be to take a pencil to the financial balance sheet of the city.
But I mean, for instance, one of the things I keep thinking about, and one of our friends on this show is Hellenbach and Looks Great Services, two great companies that came to Mississippi. That, you know, Christian Agolia is originally from New York, and he came. He founded his business here and creating jobs. And he thinks Columbia offers a great opportunity for other people, other businesses, to come in and create jobs. Don't you think that it would be the best use of the mayor's office to go out and be a champion for attracting more businesses to come in, create more jobs, and give people more of a reason to want to move into our communities? I mean, tourism is great. I agree. I mean, there's a lot we should do to attract people to a lot of the good things that are going on in our town. But I don't know that that's going to be enough to really revitalize Columbia.
Now, notice I said balance.
Mm-hmm.
Balance, retail, industry, and tourists. So that's one of the three jobs that the mayor has. The downtown, I think, has got a tremendous potential. Now, let me tell a story.
You know what? I think we're coming up against a hard
Okay.
break. So
Go
when
ahead.
we get back, we'll continue there. Thank you so much. We got Harry Griffiths on talking about his plans for if he were elected mayor. We'll be right back. Awesome.
Okay, we'll about 4 minutes.
Okay.
Good deal. Thank you.
You know,
I need a hat too.
I think a problem with the restaurant industry here is that they start out great, and then they start buying cheaper food, and it's terrible. And that's been on several instances where I don't even eat at the local places anymore because, like, they start out good, and I go there and I love it, and I go back 3 weeks later and their food's completely different. It's cheap, nasty.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm driving at, and I think we could discuss it in the next. I would love to hear your thoughts on in the next segment. Is, you know, if you look at places like Madison, right, Mississippi, and you look at Mayor Mary, right? I mean, she's been there for 35 years. Madison has a vibrant economy. Wasn't always that way, but she came in with a very clear plan. She knew what she wanted Madison to look like. She had a clear picture of what that needed to look like for businesses coming in. She's very aggressive. She's very aggressive with getting businesses to come, and she tells them exactly what the business is going to look like. Walmart's going to have bricks and, I mean, all those things. So I'm not saying we need to be the next Madison. I'm just saying how do we create an environment where businesses are beating down the door to come, and how people want to establish their company's base here. We've got great companies in Columbia, Mississippi. We've got Southern Tire, T.O. Wallace. Right on the outskirts, we have Jones Companies. These are people who are vibrant. Jones Companies, 98% of their business is outside of Columbia, and yet they stay.
Tommy Doe.
Right, and yet they stay here, and they create jobs here. So how do we model that? How do we find out more? What do we do to duplicate that to attract more businesses to come in? I think that, to me, I mean, I'm a transplant here. I came here 5 years ago. I love Columbia.
Where are you from?
I'm from California.
Oh, really? Where?
Yeah.
I was in San Diego yesterday.
Yeah, San Francisco.
San Francisco?
Grew up in the Bay Area, but I moved here I'm a Mississippian by choice, because I love the opportunity to raise my family in a place where it's a close-knit community. People are great. I think the opportunities are endless. So I think the question becomes, how do we create a vibrant economy where people want to come and want to stay? And I think there's all kinds of opportunities in that way.
Okay, Tom's going to talk for 30 seconds. We got 1 minute of that.
Okay.
Come back on. About a minute and a half.
What's the first question? And I'll bring us back in, and then
Okay.
what's your
I think we're just going to continue on the line.
on talking
Yeah.
about bringing businesses,
Mhm.
creating jobs.
All right, got a question here. Ray,
Okay.
or actually a comment. Ray Anderson said, I asked Kennedy Houston last week this question also. As Harry just said, another local company has filed bankruptcy. What is your plan for keeping businesses in Columbia with nearly zero incentive for owners and a poor infrastructure, especially with downtown having some of the poorest roads?
We know that there are many places to fill
Something
your
you can-
prescriptions in Columbia, and we appreciate you choosing Shepherd's Discount Drugs. You pick Shepherd's
You're
because
ringing.
of their fast, friendly service. Or maybe you like the convenience of their drive-up window. And let's not leave
Hey,
out
Brad, we're going to get to your question. I hope you guys are working while you're watching this hour of Main Street Matters.
By the way, we might want to get, we need to get Nick a hat.
Me,
That's another comment.
yeah, that's our pastor.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Now there you go. We need you a hat too. We need Main Street Matters hats.
Yeah.
That would sell.
But don't worry, we know you don't want to be
Main
an
Street
expert
Matters,
on
that
tires.
would sell.
You just want to go to an expert to get tires. So at Pope Tire Service, you can
seconds
be
for
sure
music.
we'll help you find the right tire. So stop by Pope Tire Service on South High School Avenue for complete details on tires. We know tires so you don't have to.
Five, four, three, two, one.
And we're back. Thank you for joining us for Main Street Matters. I'm Mr. Main Street, Nick Ingram. We are on the air, Facebook Live and WCJU with Mr. Harry Griffith running for mayor. And we were talking over the last segment. I just want to make sure we clear something up that I was a little confused by too, is that Mr. Harry mentioned that one of the businesses went bankrupt. And in our discussion, we were talking about Pioneer, and then we switched over, and Columbia Parachute is actually going bankrupt, right?
Right.
Not Pioneer. So I was under the assumption, and we got a text come in that was kind of confused, asking so for all of our Pioneer employees, we don't want you to think that that's the case. So Columbia Parachute did file bankruptcy 2 days ago, and but Pioneer is up and running, vibrant, and ready to go. So more questions for Mr. Harry Griffith. One came in over the break from Brad Anderson. Said, I asked candidate Houston last week this question also, as Harry just said, another local company, we talked about Columbia Parachute, has filed bankruptcy. What is your plan for keeping businesses in Columbia with nearly zero incentives for owners and a poor infrastructure, especially with downtown having some of the poorest roads? So, Mr. Harry, what do you think about incentivizing? What's your plan to keep local businesses here, and then also, like we talked about over the break, bringing local businesses here? So retailers and industry, we talked a lot about tourism. What's your plan for bringing retailers and industries, incentivizing those businesses to come and incentivizing those businesses to stay?
I want to point out again, City Hall is a big problem with this city and the attitude of City Hall. I've been to supervisor meetings, and those guys are into jobs. They're into doing things for the community and the county. And City Hall seems to be preoccupied with themselves. City Hall needs to be down on Main Street. They're getting the revenues from the city, and yet they act like they're just there to spend it. And City Hall, talking about the last call-in, talking about the infrastructure. A lot to do with infrastructure is the assets and the liabilities of the city. One reason City Hall can't help Main Street is because they're cash poor. Cash has gone down in the last 5 or 6 years. The reserves and the cash reserves have gone down. And yet the long-term debt has gone from, if you go to the state tax auditor, the reports that I see is long-term debt's gone from $3 million to $5.5 million. That's a lot of debt for a city of 6,000 people. Debt will drag you down. Now my recommendations to the city, and I was going to tell the story about the man that was bringing his wife to live in Columbia, and as she was coming down South High School Avenue, the lady broke down crying. It was upsetting to her that South High School Avenue is not the way to introduce Columbia to a young lady that wants to live here. And yet it could be. It could be. There's a lot, and South High School Avenue is paying a lot of taxes. Those people on South High School Avenue, and yet aesthetically, it's not what you want. Can the new candidates, my competitors, can they spell aesthetics? Can they spell ambiance? Beauty sells, architecture sells, art sells. People don't want to live in an ugly city. When we talk about infrastructure, we have one of the most beautiful downtown main streets that I've traveled all over the United States to the best, and yet we've got some architecture that could be enhanced or just brought back to where it was. You've got to the way to do that. And I've been to all of these cities that have wonderful art shows and events. They don't just when you're not keeping your place up, whether it's a residence in Columbia or whether it's a retail store, when you don't keep your place up, you're hurting your neighbor. You're hurting the city. When people come down the street and they see your yard in disarray and trashed out, and then when you let the architecture of a beautiful building like Hill Hardware, the Hill Hardware building, and we've got the most beautiful banks, the government buildings. They built that courthouse in 1903. Do you think they had a lot of money? Huh? No, they didn't. And we say, oh, we don't have the money. Well, they didn't exactly have a lot of money back then. Yeah. Zoning, are we going to be the Purvis, or are we going to be the Petal of Hattiesburg, or are we going to be the Madison of Jackson? And I think that we've got enough class. Columbia has got the most phenomenal school system to offer young people. We've got talking about balance. We've got to bring young people in. And retirement communities are one of the biggest things going. Now, what I've seen happen is people in, like, for instance, New Orleans, they have a $300,000 or $400,000 house. They're paying $500 a month in property taxes. They can come up here to Columbia and buy a huge, wonderful home with reasonable, very low taxes, and put the difference in what they sell their homes for in these other places. They can put it in the bank for savings, and they can live here beautifully. We've got a wonderful library. I noticed that the librarian is retiring. Our city manager will be retiring. Our fire chief will be retiring. What these candidates got in mind, the alderman, what have they got in mind? Have they got assistants that they've been training?
I think that is the question. We got about a minute here. But how do we attract more revenue? For instance, one of the questions we asked Reed Houston last week, we talked to the mayor about Mayor Bourne about this before that, is the idea of how do we attract more people to come in to Columbia and spend money and spend time here. One of those ways that we've talked about is a sportsplex. So I'd be curious what your thoughts are on that quickly. We've got about 30 seconds.
Okay, in 2008, I ran against Reed Houston and several others, and I had a plan. I had a long-term plan. I had a short-term plan. And one part of my long-term plan was to have the training school as a business park, and that's happened. So part of my plan is we're going to have a new sports complex for young people, for kids. And we're going to move the Griner facility slowly. Doesn't have to be a big $3 million project. We're going to move it to the middle grounds. It's a beautiful circle there in the training school. And there's going to be lights, and there's going to be soccer fields. And that's what we've got to do to bring young people into Columbia. We've got the schools.
So you're for the sportsplex?
Oh, Absolutely. We're going to have a sports
Wonderful.
complex.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to a break. We're here with Harry Griffiths on Main Street Matters. We'll be right back.
3 minutes.
If there was ever an award,
Good. So that kind of one of the questions that come up is what reason do people have to come to Columbia? If we already have what we need as far as tourism and other places of interest, then why are we having the issue of businesses closing and people not frequenting our downtown as much? What activities and culture do we offer millennials and youth, which is often referred to as the lifeblood of the community, to come to our city? So we're still on Facebook Live, so you can answer.
All right.
Guys, before you do that, sir, got about 2 minutes, and you can either have one long segment to take us to near the top of the hour, or we can have a short segment here and then a wrap up. However you guys want to do it.
How long will the short segment be?
5 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that.
Well,
So what are we doing to what are we going to do to
actually,
attract
actually
millennials?
about 3 or 4 minutes.
Three's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, three's fine.
I'm sorry.
Sports complex is one. What's some other ideas you have to attract millennials, either to open businesses or just in tourism, keeping businesses open?
Well, one point I want to make on the radio, not just on the live feed here, is that these industries we're bragging about. You know where they came from? They're homespun industries. The Duffs started here. The Quality Welding out there on 98. Dennis Pittman's block company, my manufacturing company.
Looks Great
started
Services.
here 60 years
Looks
ago.
Great Services came from New York. Hellenbach came from New York.
Well, they're the same.
Well, they're two separate businesses.
Right, but
with two separate
Christian
jobs.
came from the New York
Absolutely.
area. But I will say that his wife has got a lot to do with him being here, and that's wonderful too that she was able to get a good man like Christian to come here. The Kemp Company, Columbia's always been a phenomenal place for spawning new businesses. It's just because of need. It's not easy, and you got to make a living. You're gonna come up with something.
Mm-hmm. How much time do we have before we
30
start?
seconds.
30 seconds? All right, here we go.
You want me to bring us back in, or you want to bring us back in?
I'll bring us back in.
413 South Masco Avenue. There are some people out there who buy back and continue to say price
Is that live like that?
He's like,
Mike or my mouth?
Mike.
10 seconds.
See this and many other new innovative products. See me, Jim Seymour, 413 South Masco Avenue in Columbia. Call 736-8000.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we're back with Main Street Matters. Candidate Harry Griffiths for mayor of Columbia. Thank you for being on this morning. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you've run for mayor a couple times. How many times have you been running for
3
mayor?
times. This is my third run.
So what do you think your chances are this time around?
The electorate's a funny thing. They'll vote for how many signs a fella's got. They'll vote because the fella's their neighbor. They'll vote for because they heard him on the radio. So you never know what the. I think this last federal election is. You never know what's going to happen in an election. And,
I mean, let me ask you this, I'm a political junkie. I love the politics, the process. A lot of people see candidates who are kind of running multiple times as spoilers sometimes. So, you've got two strong candidates. You got someone like Reed Houston, who's been mayor before, or Justin McKenzie, who's in law enforcement. Do you fear that maybe your candidacy is going to take away from one of those candidates and maybe, or do you think that you have a strong chance to win?
I have a wonderful fate. Things just have happened to me in my life wonderfully, and got to do a lot with persistence and hard work, but it's also just got to do with the way the good Lord's brought things to me. And I don't necessarily think it's my fate to be mayor of Columbia, but I'm not going to deny fate, and that's why I ran, not to be a. I think that I think the city has important problems, and that I'm the best qualified to address those problems because of 46 years of business experience. I've experienced floods, hurricanes, fires throughout my business of manufacturing, and that's prepared me. Plus, when I went to school, I studied accounting, finance. I didn't just study accounting and specialize to get a job.
So we're about a minute out, and I want to make sure that I give the floor to you for the remainder of this segment for a minute. But if you were given your 30-second elevator pitch to the people of Columbia, why should they go to the polls and vote for you?
Qualifications. You compare my qualifications, business career. You need a businessman in City Hall, and where my competitor, he's got a police background. I think the police force is in good shape, and where Reed Houston, I think Reed Houston made mistakes in his first run, mainly with the bond issue, and the fact that it was for the wrong purpose. It was bond issues are long-term debt to pay for stuff like water towers and stuff like that, where the street issue is something that just should be in the mainstream of the budget.
Well, I appreciate it. Unfortunately, we got to close out this segment, but thank you so much for your time, and thank you for expressing your views and why you think you'd be the best candidate for mayor. We'll be right back.
30 seconds.
Keep rolling over this.
How long is this break?
30 seconds. We're going to come back on for about 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And then we'll wrap it up.
That's it. Yeah, 2 minutes. Yes, is it.
I'm glad to see you young guys, and I want to visit with you some more.
Tell you what, I'll go ahead and put another 30 seconds in here. Give you all time to shift.
That we're excited about what's happening here on Main Street Matters, getting a lot of great feedback. Thank you for your questions on Facebook. Don't forget to go back. If you haven't watched the live stream, you can go and watch the live stream.
Keep those questions coming, because I mean, I think there's a lot of things a lot of questions were created in that segment, so I think keep them coming.
Absolutely. Well, again, we want to thank you for joining us for Main Street Matters. We are always happy to do this, and we'll be bringing you more commerce, capital, and community issues that affect our local economy.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being on. And don't forget, next week, Main Street Matters with the mystery